Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lanore.
This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini.
How you doing, Dr. Jeff?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Carl?
Fantastic, fantastic. The summer is here. It's in full effect, and I'm ready for a great show. We're going to be talking about the lonely B vitamin, the not sexy B vitamin, the B vitamin that never gets talked about.
Absolutely, the one that's lost in space, so to say.
but quite frankly, one of the earliest B vitamins to show an importance in overall health.
It actually is the most important B vitamin of all, and I thought, kind of leading into the word vitamin. Let's talk a little bit about what that means and how things get classified as a vitamin. So I'm going to go back to 1911. The chemist Casimir Funk, sounds like a musician.
Really?
He isolated a substance from rice bran extract, which he thought was the anti-beriberi factor. And we're going to talk about beriberi in a little bit. Because this substance was an amine, and because he thought the substance had vital dietary functions, he named it a vitamine. Turns out that he actually didn't discover the cure to beriberi, but the name vitamin stuck for anything that is fat-soluble, water-soluble, that's an organic substance that is an essential in small amounts to normal growth and activity in living organisms. So that's what a vitamin is. And, of course, then we move on to classifying the different types of vitamins.
Another thing that I learned in reading up about vitamin B is that every species of animal and obviously humans on the planet requires it. There's a lot of B vitamins that we need that maybe other animals and other species don't, but B1 is universally needed, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it is essential for normal growth function. Again, it's classified as the most important of the B vitamins. And it's a water soluble. Vitamins are classified by fat soluble and water soluble. Water soluble means that essentially your body doesn't store it. It's kind of in and out. So that's why it's important to get it in every day.
What are some of the symptoms, or what are some of the outward indicators that someone could be deficient, and what do deficiencies in B1 bring about in the human condition?
The deficiencies are not like some of the vitamins where maybe you just feel fatigue or tired. These are pretty serious. So the first one is a symptom called, or a disease called beriberi, which most people probably never heard of, because I don't know when the last time, maybe back in the 30s, where we actually had beriberi in the United States, other than we do see one of the symptoms of beriberi, which I'll talk about here in a minute, in infants. But basically, B1 deficiency leads to chronic diseases. And one of those chronic diseases, like I said, is beriberi, which is a neurological and a cardiovascular disease. Now, there's three types of beriberi. One of them is called wet beriberi, and that one is the one that's been associated with cardiovascular diseases and is one of the most chronic symptoms of the deficiency of B1. So a lot of things, could fall into cardiovascular or those type of chronic diseases that actually could be part of beriberi.
Why do they call it? Why is it called wet? Does it produce a congested cough? Usually, when they talk about wet, there's some sort of buildup of fluid.
Beriberi is such a diverse disease. It causes everything from a crippling to loss of muscle. I would assume that, being this particular one is wet, it probably has something to do with, lungs. I don't know whether it necessarily builds up fluid.
Right.
But it's a nasty, nasty disease.
What's the other beriberi?
The other one is called dry beriberi, which it also affects both the cardiovascular and the nervous system. The third one is a deficiency that they call infantile beriberi, and this is usually because a lot of times the infant formulas that aren't fortified with B1, you know, when they get off breastfeeding or they go directly to some formula and there's not B1 in there, infants can develop that. And usually the primary symptom is a loss of voice in the beginning, but again, it can lead to, infant beriberi. So,
but now, so these types of diseases present themselves well. Are we to assume that since I heard the word beriberi on Gilligan's Island when I was a kid, right? The professor said something about beriberi on the show. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard about beriberi like in life where someone said, "Oh, so and so has beriberi." So are we to assume that our diet is sufficiently providing B1 since we don't see beriberi, or is it one of those situations like vitamin C where, you know, subclinical deficiencies produce symptoms that are not easily identifiable?
You know, in the United States, it is really easy. Women only need like 1.1 milligrams per day, and men need about 1.4, which is the percent daily value, to prevent B1 deficiency. And so many things that we eat contain much more B1. So even if you didn't supplement with a vitamin, you know, most all fish. Okay, so you don't eat fish, pork. You don't eat pork. Most all the nuts and seeds are high. And then you get into the wheats. So most people, you know, do eat, bagels and English muffins and rye beds.
Right.
And all of the green peas, high, sweet corn, all forms of squash, asparagus, soybeans, and then all of the navy beans. So those are things that are pretty common in most of our diets. So it's not too difficult to get in the required amount of B1 to prevent those deficiencies. The one thing that does really hinder and override, you know, our diet is alcoholism. You know, people who drink excessively, one of the deficiencies is something called WKS, or Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. And this is a disease that literally is caused by alcohol. It creates a deficiency in B1.
Really?
And, yeah. From this, you
got. So I would have to imagine that even moderate alcohol consumption, somebody who drinks a couple times a week, maybe a couple glasses of wine each time, needs to be cognizant that they better be getting enough B1 in their diet.
I think so, because, you know, how do you just define alcoholism? I mean, you know, I know AA probably has a definition from it, but, you know.
Yeah, but that definition is a social construct. It's not about, typically you're an alcoholic if your alcoholism is now causing you to lose jobs, lose families, and so on. But there's a lot of people out there who are functional. They drink every night. They have a glass or two of wine. They would be not considered an alcoholic on the social construct side, but they could be B1 deficient.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, it is proven that alcohol does decrease B1 and cause a deficiency. So again, we don't know from each person, you know, how much it's going to take. Is it going to take 1 drink a week, 1 drink a day, 10 drinks a day? So do be aware that is, a cause of B1 deficiency. And actually, it is the biggest cause of this WKS disease is alcohol.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you want to talk about any other deficiencies before we take a break, or any other issues on that side of the discussion? And then when we come back, we could talk about good sources, supplementation, and all the other stuff you want to cover?
You know, I think those are the main deficiencies. We'll go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come up with a scientific definition for B1, and then we'll talk about, you know, the benefits and what it does.
There you go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Science for Humans.
Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one.
Have you tried Carbolin yet? It's what the pros use. At EFX Sports, we know athletes and we know what it takes to safely fuel their performance. That's why we created Carbolin, the ultimate formulated to win carbohydrate drink. Whether you want to quickly carb load before a big competition or you want to recover faster after a workout, Carbolin is the answer. Carbolin is sugar-free, gluten-free, and caffeine-free. Best of all, you can try Carbolin right now absolutely free. Just head over to getcarbolin.com and sign up to receive a free sample of this amazing carbohydrate formula. Once again, that's getcarbolin.com. GetCarbolyn.com.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We did that set backwards. We played the bumper music out in so that we could play One is the Loneliest Number, which was very appropriate, wasn't it, Jeff?
It was. As we said, this is probably a BVitamin Diamine that most people probably didn't know it existed. Maybe you looked on a vitamin label of some complex and you saw B1, but you wouldn't think
and you just made a great point too that I was going to bring up. It's not always labeled as B1. Most of the time, especially in bread products, it'll be fortified with thiamine.
And that is the name for B1. B1 is just kind of the common name. So somebody decided to give it B1, B2, B3, but the actual name is thiamine. And no, you wouldn't know that was vitamin B1.
Yeah. So B1 also plays a role in metabolism, right? It's required for the breakdown of certain things that we eat. Or am I wrong about that? Isn't it a coenzyme?
Absolutely. It actually helps to convert blood sugar into energy. So B1 is responsible or necessary for that whole ATP conversion of sugar into glucose. So very, very important.
So let me pose an idea that I don't know that this has been looked at or not, but a B1 could also then, in that case, a deficiency might present itself or even cause the acquisition of type 2 diabetes. And here's my thoughts on that. If you don't have the fuel, so to say, for cells and mitochondria to function properly, the body would attempt to deploy more blood sugar, right? It thinks that we have a hypoglycemic episode, and as a result, raise insulin levels, and the whole cascade of events that ensue when we become insulin resistant. You think that B1 could play some minor role in the acquisition of type 2 diabetes?
I do. And with all of the different, fad diets and things we go on where we're limiting ourselves, where some people just don't eat any nuts or seeds because there's fat, or, some people don't like fish, or they don't eat pork. Those are essential things to eat. And absolutely, I think that, B1 can contribute to that. If it is important to converting that blood sugar into energy, a deficiency would surely make sense that it could lead to, type 2 diabetes.
Do you think supplementation is logical, Dr. Jeff, since we know that the RDAs are established as the minimum your body needs to just survive, but we all want to thrive, not just survive. So you think that therapeutic doses are actually higher than the RDA? And if so, are there limits to that? Is there a dose that becomes unsafe with B1?
Yeah, and like you said, the percent daily values are, first of all, based on a 2,000 calorie diet. How many of us know how many calories a day we eat in? We take in, unless you actually are an athlete who's calculating. So they are, as you said, the minimum amount to prevent diseases. They're not to give you the benefit. But B vitamin 1, being water soluble, I have seen no studies that show that taking any excess amount that there has been any adverse reactions. Actually, to the contrary, people who take elevated amounts actually have enhanced brain functioning.
Wow.
I thought that was pretty interesting. But I think, again, allergies, colds, things of that nature, being tired, these all deplete our bodies of vitamins. So although, the 1.4 milligrams per day of the DV is enough to prevent beriberi or WKS, it's not enough for us to really fuel our diets or our bodies. And especially if you're an athlete, you need more. So I think, getting into the 50 to 100 milligrams a day is really probably the optimal amount. But keep in mind, you got to be careful elevating one of these vitamins because you could then cause some deficiency in something else. So it's always good when you take your B vitamins to use a B complex that contains all of them.
Interesting. Yeah, so they do, and not to get, because we're going to talk more about B vitamins in other shows, but do B vitamins occur in nature in specific ratios? Have you found that to be the case?
I haven't. It's really all over the board,
Right.
depending on, the source. So I haven't seen nature, coming up with the best B complex. I think from a scientific side, we've kind of developed what we think. And usually, I think most people agree relatively even amounts are the best. There is no rhyme or reason. Water soluble, you take too much, you get what we call the neon stream. It's excreted in urine, so it's really difficult to build up a toxicity level of water-soluble vitamins.
Do you think that, I'm thinking about trying to take a therapeutic dose of vitamin B1 isolated by itself, just to see if I notice anything. So if I were to take 100 milligrams of B1, what do you think about taking it for just a few days and notice if I have any changes in energy, assuming I keep everything else static, everything else exactly the same?
I think what you will find is your energy level will probably be more stable, but I think you're also going to find that your brain function, your alertness, your cognitiveness is going to increase.
Interesting.
That's what I'm thinking, from what I've seen out there. I know myself, I haven't in years used just it by itself. I am a believer of B complex and using, that 50 to 100 milligram. And you do feel a lot better. As we'll be talking about, over the next weeks, we'll probably be working our ways through the B vitamins, and all of them are important. So it's kind of hard to say, let me not take any of the other ones and only take one. There might be a reason why you would elevate B1. Like I said, if you're thinking that you are, on the verge to type 2 diabetes, or, your brain just isn't functioning, you're not snapping, that memory, things of that nature, or you're tired, that could be a slight deficiency in B1.
What about egg yolks? I know egg yolks tend to have B vitamins. Do we see vitamin B1 in egg yolks?
In my top 10 list, I didn't see that listed.
Interesting.
It may be, and if it is, it might be relatively low. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is keep in mind, they're on your seeds. The raw forms are always the best. Once you cook or I call it frying,
roast,
roasting,
roasted pecans as opposed to raw pecans, right?
Yeah, now you're really stripping the vitamins out. One of an example is like asparagus, raw contains about 11% of the DV for B1. Once you cook it, it drops down to 4%. So you're still going to get some in there, but again, these are water soluble. So in cooking and roasting, it does wash out. The same way with, overcooking fish, where, maybe like tuna fish in a can, where who knows what the processing has been to get there. You may not have as much as a nice piece of awi tuna or, a medium rare cooked piece of tuna.
What about this? Now, this is going to harken back, and you're probably going to go, oh, yes, because when you were training at the Mecca of bodybuilding at Venice Beach, California, a lot of the fathers of physical culture were real big on Brewers Yeast. Remember Brewers Yeast?
Yep.
And Brewers Yeast has a ton of thiamine along with a ton of other B vitamins. What are your thoughts on Brewers Yeast? Should it make a revival? I had somebody say no, it has too much iron in it. What do you think about Brewers Yeast as a good source of B vitamins?
I think a couple things need to make a revival. everything is kind of like fashion comes around, and the more we know, the least we forget about. But I think, again, Brewers Yeast, in a good form, has got so many benefits, similar to, you remember the old liver tablets we used to take?
Yeah.
Those were high in B vitamins also, along with, good source of amino acids, iron. Again, I think athletes need more iron. So I don't have an issue unless you've got some reason why, you shouldn't be taking that. But, that's what we lived on. We didn't have all these isolated forms. So yes, we have more technology and we have more science now, but there's a lot of good things, that we used to do that we forgot about.
Well, and you just mentioned one that really should be, if you are a meat eater, you should absolutely have liver a couple times a month. Now, the quality of liver, back in the day, and you'll probably endorse what I'm about to say, it was Argentine from Argentina. They acquired all the liver that they made liver tablets with from Argentina because their standards on raising cattle were unsurpassed. I don't know if it's still the case, but if you have a family farm that you do business with, getting liver from cows that have been raised naturally on grass and not given any antibiotics or drugs or not exposed to pesticides or herbicides, because all that stuff gets caught up in the liver. It's a great idea to make liver a couple times a month, right?
Absolutely. You just got to have one of those good old Italian recipes to use enough onions, right?
Onions and bay leaf, right? Then it changes, and that smells good, and because that's the problem with liver. A lot of people get grossed out by it because when you cook it, it has a certain smell, but that's because it's rich in plasma. It's rich in blood. It's rich in the things that you really, really want. And the truth is, I make liver rare. I prefer it rare, but I was raised eating something. So every year my grandfather used to slaughter a lamb, and they used to cook every part of it, including the blood. He would mix it with red wine, and they would bake it in the oven. It's called sanguinaccio, and it comes out like a loaf of liver, and you just slice it. And I used to eat that when I was a kid.
Oh, sure. And, I mean, there were some things that I think we were healthier from some standpoints, than we are now because we have forgotten or, we're too sophisticated to eat that. But slap some flour on it, a little olive oil.
Bingo.
Onions, and like you said, bay leaf, and it's actually quite good.
Yeah. So there you go. Make sure you're getting adequate amounts of vitamin B1. If you're not, you may want to start supplementing and look for the foods that are high in B1, especially nuts. Thank you, Dr. Jeff.
You're welcome. And always remember, when you go to buy a supplement, make sure it's a reputable brand and not the least expensive one you can find.
That's right. That's one area you don't want to cut corners, all right?
Absolutely.
You don't want to cut corners on surgery, and you don't want to cut corners on supplements. So there you go.
There you go.
All right. Take care, Dr. Jeff.
Bye-bye.